and welcome to the award-winning Ed Brown Show. I'm your host, Kamari Richmond, and we have a great show for you today. We are talking to Dr. Yolanda Hancock, and she is back. She was here a few months ago, and we were talking about, now she's a pediatrician.
Yeah.
She's also the owner of Delta Health and Wellness Consulting.
Absolutely.
But we started talking about health care for all, and I was like, you must come back because it's a hot topic.
Yes.
They have a debate tonight.
Yes.
Bloomberg is finally going to be
Showing up.
Yeah, he's going to be showing up tonight on the debate, and so I'm really interested on that topic. So welcome back to
Thank
the
you.
Ed Brown Show. Thank you so very much. And on the line, we have another special guest. We have Dr. Jerome, who has been working with on this issue. So thank you. You are tuning in from South Carolina?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having me. This has been great.
Thank you. So talk to us about Medicare for All.
Dr. Sriram, I will pitch it to you first to lay it out for us.
Yeah. So, I think different people come to the Medicare for All movement for different reasons. I can describe to you what brought me to become an ardent supporter of this policy. And it's actually built on a bit of good news and some optimism that, this year, 2020, is the first year in a very, 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 very long time that the majority of America's children will be people of color. And that's a great milestone that, our American family is growing and changing, and I think it's beautiful, right? It's like the rising majesty of melanin. It's awesome. But it's a great time to reevaluate and do the introspection about what kind of healthcare systems and what kind of economic systems are we set to pass on to our kids. Mm-hmm. Like, our healthcare systems, are they rooted in justice and healthcare being a basic human right? Or are we prioritizing profits before patients? And right now, I do worry that we don't have the kind of healthcare system that helps anyone survive, much less thrive. I think that it's about the mighty dollar, the mighty profit. And so I came to the Medicare for All movement because I want healthcare to be about the reasons why I became a doctor, which is that I believe healthcare is a basic human right. I believe that when we root healthcare in justice, we are building a system that is actually seeking out the best potential of each and every one of us, which leads to healthier people, families, communities, and country. And so that's my path to Medicare for All, is that I believe it is an absolute necessity for racial equity and justice in this country.
Interesting. And do you think, is it really possible? Is it something that we can do in a short period of time, or is it going to take some work?
Oh, I think, all of the great things that we have in this country have taken work. All of us, on this show, right, like our very existence is because people who came before us put a lot on the line. They risked, they sacrificed, and they had vision for a better, healthier future than what they had experienced or what their parents had experienced. And they didn't wait for Black and brown and Latinx and immigrant lives to become popular. They didn't wait for it to become politically expedient. They made the moral case, and they shook up some comfort zones in ways that I think we're going to have to do now to make Medicare for All a reality.
Okay. Wow. And kind of walk us through how it actually works. Either one of you can do that.
Sure. So the two pieces of legislation that I like to focus on are Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal's bill in the House, H.R. 1384, and the one that most people talk about is Senator Bernie Sanders' bill, which is in the Senate. It got first launched in 2017, and then it got relaunched in the spring of 2019. And so those are the two pieces of legislation that I speak from. And what this is envisioning is an end to the profiteering and greed of the of the private insurance industry, and in its place to take our current Medicare program, which is very fiscally responsible and very efficient with our healthcare dollars, and expand it and upgrade it so that it can take care of all of us. Right now, Medicare, requires people to pay 20%, of a cost. Medicare will take care of 80. For our seniors, it doesn't cover things like eyeglasses and dental work and hearing aids. With Medicare for All, those are all upgrades that we make right off the bat. Also, we achieve huge savings by negotiating with the pharmaceutical companies by bringing everybody together in Medicare for All. You've got a federal government that is now going to push back against big pharma corporations because it's going to tell them, we've got 320 something million people in this country. If you want to, sell drugs here, if you want to do business here, you have to be reasonable with these prices. And if you don't, you're missing out on a major business opportunity because we've got 320 million people. And that's something that it will create a huge savings for the healthcare system, and people will stop, making false choices about, do I take my heart medicine or my insulin because I can't afford to do both. Under this system, people, are freed from that, from those false choices, and just focus on getting healthy.
I think one of the other important distinctions is it takes out the guessing game, right? So you go to the hospital, you have no clue what the bill is going to be at the end. I compare it to taking your car into the mechanic. Before the mechanic participates in repairing the car, he'll give you an estimate. Dr. Hancock, to replace your brakes, do your oil filter, etc., it's going to cost you $750. And then I can decide, well, no, we're not going to do brakes today. Let's just stick with the oil filter, and I get to drive my car home, squeaky brakes and all. But you show up to a hospital, an emergency department, even sometimes your primary care provider's office. A couple of tests are ordered. Heaven forbid you have to get more invasive studies, an MRI, a CT scan. You won't know until you've come home, recovered, and a month later you get 15 different bills from 10 different doctors. And there's more transparency when we're speaking of policy like Medicare for All, a program like Medicare for All. It takes the guesswork out of it. You aren't going to be devastated at the end because you did not know that your hospital bill was going to be $15,000. And I can speak for myself when I was a college student, I had a medical emergency, had to be transported by ambulance. My student insurance only covered a certain amount of that care. I didn't have private insurance. I ended up having to take out a student loan simply to pay a hospital bill. And it could have devastated me, but luckily I had financial aid as a cushion, which it shouldn't have been. And in a situation like having coverage under Medicare for All, that does not happen.
Okay, so with the Medicare for All, are we no longer paying the 20%? I mean, is everything covered?
That's
or
right.
would there still be?
That's right. We're not paying that 20% anymore. Everything is free at the point of care. So the way that things are financed now is that, like Dr. Hancock was saying, is that, you can end up with surprise bills. You go to the doctor and find out that there's a copay. You go to the pharmacy, find out that there's a copay for that. So it's being paid for in all of these nitpicky ways that really do challenge families about, is it worth it to go to the doctor when we have to pay up so much? And increasingly, insurance companies are saying that you need to pay a multi-$1,000 deductible before we even help you pay for care. Medicare for All says none of that. We will take care of financing the system with taxes. And so it's very much like going to a public library. Nobody, charges my daughter when she shows up at the counter with books to check out. It's, there's an assumption that sure, her dad's a doctor, probably pay a little bit more in taxes, than the next person to keep the library going. But she and the child after her don't have a different experience because of who their parents are and what their parents are earning, which is exactly the problem that we have right now.
Absolutely.
Okay, and so it's paid for. So is this where a lot of the candidates are saying we're going to ask, like for Elizabeth Warren, it's the 2% wealth tax. So is this where we're asking folks with money to pay more, or how will it be funded?
Yeah, so one of the things that I like to draw people's attention to is actually like the savings that are accomplished, because when you use a Medicare for All system, you're going to save $500 billion a year in administrative costs. That's a huge savings that goes into actually delivering care, where right now it's being wasted on things like doctors like me and Dr. Hancock filling out paperwork, having to fax that, having to fax it again because they say they didn't get it, having to wait on hold for somebody to pick up the phone. All of that is costing the system money, and it makes nobody healthier. And so when you eliminate that, you actually now have a source of money to put that back into health. So the savings cannot be stressed enough. As far as the taxes, I think that this is where you have like a lot of different pathways for making the super rich finally pitch in their fair share. We have Amazon that pays nothing in federal income taxes despite being a multi-billion-dollar company. What their tax rate is going to look like, I don't know, but I mean, we know that they're going to start paying some taxes. And I think that as we start holding the wealthy accountable, we can start finding more fair and equitable ways of paying for healthcare so that it actually delivers peace of mind and isn't a source of financial ruin for so many people.
Mm-hmm. And that's what's been happening, is it's financial ruin for
Absolutely.
a lot of people, because like you say, you get one bill, then next week another bill. The bills just keep coming.
Yeah.
And so now we know that the Republicans have a lot of pushback on this. How do you get, and let's say for Trump, his base, how do you get people to rally around Medicare for All? Because a lot of people don't want it to happen, and they don't think that it can happen.
Yeah, great question. And one of the things that I tell people is that as a doctor, I've never seen a cancer or asthma or seizure disorder that cared about who you voted for or where you get your news. That is not a biological reality. Cancer wants to take you down. That is what it wants to do. And the way we fight back is not just with science and medicine, though that's super important. One of our keys to fighting back against these problems is that we have solidarity. Doctors like me, doctors like Dr. Hancock, we refuse to leave our patient's bedside until the mission is done, until we've gotten our patient whole again. And I think that is a work ethic that I'd like to see extended to the rest of the country. And I feel like when I talk to, I'm in South Carolina right now, and when I talk to people about that type of value of solidarity and looking out for your neighbor, that resonates with people. That makes people feel like we're rebuilding trust in each other, which is something that we've kind of lost over time.
Absolutely.
Right, and I think about it in the way that people supported, people who were against the Affordable Care Act when Obama was attempting to pass it, came fighting to defend it when Trump tried to end it.
Yep.
And you're talking blue states, red states, purple states, everyone showed up. Mitch McConnell couldn't make it to his home office. There was such a line of people who were demanding that he protect their affordable care, because as Dr. Sriram mentioned, health trumps politics any day of the week. And when families are either Republican or Democrat, independent, libertarian, whatever the case may be, we're all impacted and affected by our health system as it currently stands. My mom, I just recently had health issues and had to have an MRI. I had to call my doctor to ask her to fill out the form and send it over to the imaging company. Then I had to call the imaging company to ask them to make sure they had the form. And then I found out that it isn't as simple as that. I had to then call my insurance company, because my insurance company has to prior authorize it. Then my doctor had to call the insurance company to justify why she's getting the study done. And it's just step after step after step. And had it not been for me, one, being a doctor, two, being an entrepreneur with the flexibility to be able to spend time on the phone, and three, knowing as a physician how to navigate through the system, use the right words, call on the right people, was I able to get this done. I had to do it 3 different times because I had to get 3 different MRIs. So imagine someone in Podunk, Louisiana, where I'm originally from, where you don't know who to call, you don't know that you're even supposed to call. You wait and wait, and say, for instance, it was something significant like a brain tumor. I'm waiting, thinking my doctor or someone else in the insurance company space is going to handle all of this for me. Instead, I have to sit in the driver's seat and take responsibility for navigating through all of these systems, and only because I have sort of the inside scoop do I know how to navigate.
Right.
This is why particularly we see the health disparities that we do. Here in the state of Maryland, where there are close to 400,000 people who are uninsured, the majority of them, 73% of them, are people of color. And so people always ask me, from a health equity standpoint, Dr. Hancock, why do we see the health disparities that we do in terms of African Americans as it relates to diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease? And it isn't because we're genetically inferior, it's because of the system. It's because the health system is designed in such a way that it makes it, one, difficult to even achieve health insurance, and even once you have it, to be able to navigate through it so that you can reach your optimal health.
That is amazing. The numbers are that significant.
It's that significant, and it's not just people sitting at home, quote unquote, collecting a check. Almost 90% of people who are uninsured here in Maryland are from working families. It's families who are either working part-time or they're working for organizations, institutions, small businesses that aren't providing the health insurance that they need. You know, when we think about health insurance as it currently exists and it being linked to an employer, that was something that was created back in the 1940s after World War II. We're well past World War II, and we don't need the same system that worked back then that we do now, and that's what needs to change. When we think about the fact that almost a third of the jobs that we currently have in this country will be replaced by automation in 10 years, but our insurance is still linked to our employer, what's 1/3 of the country going to do if we don't have a system like Medicare for All?
Right.
That is a great point, and that is a great point. Did we lose Dr. Sharon?
He's here.
Okay.
Shh, mommy, hold on. We just lost him, but we're getting him right back. But
Okay.
that's the key, is having a clear understanding of what the impact is going to be on automation and technological advancement. There's a push right now for trade jobs, a lot of jobs where we get to use our hands and our technical skills. But a lot of those jobs lend themselves to entrepreneurship, small businesses.
Right.
It's the backbone of our country. The problem, though, is that, again, if we're linking insurance to employment, then how do we match not having an employer base with the need for medical coverage?
And see, that's a whole nother piece. I hadn't even thought about that, as we're looking at times are going to change and are changing right now.
Right.
How do we have that kind of balance?
Right, and I mean, you can't slow down technology. It's going to happen.
Right,
Like you can see
right.
it now when you go to Giant at 9 o'clock at night. You cannot find a cashier to save your life, but all the lanes are open for you to self-checkout.
Right.
So what happens to those individuals who used to work at Giant and get their benefits? What are they going to do in terms of health insurance coverage?
And so if we don't have something like Medicare for All, then we leave a lot of people basically to the wind.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right.
They're working but
And,
uninsured.
I mean, you know, the thing about this kind of system is that I really want people to understand that this could be any of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because, you know, one of the most common situations that I hear from my friends in oncology is that someone with good employer-sponsored insurance has the misfortune of being diagnosed with cancer. And, you know, during the first year of treatment, that's the hardest year of this person's life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, they are literally fighting for their life to, you know, be whole again. And they can get so sick that it becomes impossible to work, and you run out of sick days. And then you lose your job. You lose the job. You lose the health insurance. And, you know, up until that point, you know, you were paying premiums every month. You were, you know, doing like you were playing by the rules. And it was all under the assumption that when the worst happens, this insurance is going to be there for you.
Yeah.
And, you know, when the worst happens, it's not. So all of us have this human vulnerability. And I think that the more that we kind of get used to the idea that, you know, all of us are God's children and we're all capable of being vulnerable at some point in our lives, we need healthcare to be, based on a system that doesn't care what you earn or where you live or what you look like. It's
Right.
about it being a human right.
Right, absolutely.
Absolutely, absolutely. And are there any drawbacks to Medicare for all?
Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, like, I'm not going to lie to people about the political challenges ahead of us. We are up against some of the most powerful special interests in Washington. United Healthcare, that insurance company, in 2020, they are projected to make $260 billion.
It's from denying claims like mine.
Right. And so it's like, they are not going to play. They are not going to wither on the vine. They're not going to, disappear quietly. Like, that's not the nature of what we are up against. They're putting that money into lobbying. They're putting that money into marketing. And it's going to be up to us talking to each other and reconnecting, person to person, community to community, to really get back in touch with what are our values when it comes to being sick and vulnerable. Like, we don't talk about this enough because we keep connecting that if you're a vulnerable person, you must lack virtue. But that's simply not true. Doctors know this all the time. Like, as I was saying before, cancer doesn't care, what kind of person you are. And so our best offense is our solidarity, our willingness to defend each other's humanity, and to let our members of Congress know that if you don't share this value, we'll elect someone who does. And it's not going to be easy, but I feel like it's winnable, and we have to. Our kids deserve better than this. I want us to be the last generation that fights for this, very basic concept of healthcare being a human right.
Absolutely. And I think it's important, no system is perfect. I think one of the important parts of the work that Senator Sanders is doing is linking to physicians who are in this fight with him. And I think it's really important also from a legislative standpoint to hear, for those of us who do currently accept Medicare, to be able to give the feedback of what needs to change, even from a bureaucratic day-to-day standpoint, right? So I'll give you an example. One of my seniors sees me, she receives Medicare right now, and it takes a little bit longer for us to be reimbursed, and there's specific forms that we have to use, comparatively speaking. But when I think about the amount of time and effort and energy that I put into calling insurance companies and writing letters to justify why patients have to come and see me from the private insurance companies, those are things that I don't have to do for my patients who receive Medicare. So I think it's important, one, to acknowledge that every system is going to have its hiccups and its challenges. It's important for us as healthcare providers to communicate what those current challenges are in the current state that Medicare is in, so that when this system is created, we address the concerns and the valid concerns that some healthcare providers do have about the current Medicare system.
What can we do as individuals?
What can we do as I think part of it is having a clear understanding of what Medicare for all means. Making sure that you understand that it's not going to be, like you hear about, oh, look at the VA, look at this problem, look at Canada, their medical system is crashing and burning. I think it's important to understand and truly vet what you hear, to speak to those who are doing work out in the field, to have a clear understanding of what Medicare for all entails, as you're doing today. Just becoming more educated on what the current system is and what needs to change.
I tell people, look, we all grew up on Scooby-Doo, right? It wasn't a surprise to us when they take the mask off at the end and it's like this, crusty old mean dude who we met at the beginning of the episode who was behind all of the troubles that this gang of people were, facing. It's sort of like, look, we've got, behind the marketing is a crusty old dude who, wants to continue profiteering off of us. And we've got to show folks that, we learned a thing or two from watching Scooby. We're better detectives than this. We're smart. We know how to, and I would say that we need to also ask people who are champions of Medicare for All to wrestle with tough questions. I love getting a challenging question that I'm not 100% sure about the answer to, because to me, I'm like, this is an opportunity to actually strengthen the policy and to, bring this person in so that they can, join me in the next fight. And I don't take, I don't take attacks, like personally. I look at that as an opportunity to have a new conversation.
Right.
And so I encourage people to, turn down the temperature and be a little, do the detective work of asking, like, who paid for this advertisement on TV? What are they getting out of all this that makes them want to drive this fear? Mm-hmm. And I think the more that we do that and the more we talk about it openly, I think that strengthens our movement and we can win this.
Right.
Wow, absolutely. Where should people start looking to get the best information on the Medicare for All?
Yeah, so for people who want to learn more about how Medicare for All can contribute to racial equity, they're welcome to come to the campaign that I'm leading. It's at socialsecurityworks.org/all-means-all. It's a program that we're doing at that nonprofit group called Social Security Works, where we really want racial equity to be front and center in Medicare for All. So you'll find fact sheets for how many people are uninsured in your state, how many of them are people of color, what kind of incomes do they make, are they working, so you can arm yourself with the facts. There's also MedicareForAllNow.org. This is another nonprofit group that is really all about advocacy and very grassroots. And they're actually the people who I'm working with right now in South Carolina. Like, they're the ones who are getting in touch with church groups, they're getting in touch with college students, with seniors, to make town halls and roundtables where we can just have like these really open conversations and just get to the truth and the facts about this policy.
And Dr. Sriram is a mentee of mine from back in the day. We're now colleagues. He is very humble. He also writes for Huffington Post. You can find him at Dr. America on Huffington Post, where he also provides phenomenal education on Medicare for All.
Thank you. We have about 1 minute, so I wanted to ask let's give your contact information as well.
Sure. So you can find me on social media at Ask Dr. Yola on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
That is wonderful. Dr. Sriram, thank you so much.
My Facebook page is facebook.com/Dr. America Show. It's DRAMERICA Show. And I used to do a little bit of podcasting, and now I create some other media, and that's where my op-eds get posted and other material that I think is really thought-provoking about Medicare for All, racial equity, and health justice.
Well, thank you both so much for being on the Ed Brown Show. This has been so enlightening. I'm so glad we had a chance to do it again. And we want to thank everyone for tuning in. You've heard the contact information. Definitely reach out to both doctors so that we can, I'm excited now that I feel like I have a better understanding of what's going on. And so tonight, for the debates, I will be looking and listening about what this actually means for each of us. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.